a suspense thriller complete with scandal, corruption, charlatans, and FBI investigations. Author James Leighton joins us. James, welcome to the show. Thanks for being a high roller, man.
Thanks for having me, Derek. I appreciate it.
Congratulations on the book. Why the subject? Why this undertaking for you?
Well, do you know what? I'd actually been concentrating on writing soccer books in the UK. My last book was on a Manchester United soccer player called Duncan, and I was going to continue on that path. But then I was reading the newspaper one morning in the UK, about 18 months ago now, and there was this story about this young kid, Daniel TZVETKOFF, who had lived this absolutely crazy life, just in his mid-20s, and had lived the dream and then some, and had then been blamed for the complete collapse of online poker in America. So a story like that obviously caught my attention, and I mentioned it to my publisher, thinking that someone must be writing it already. It was such an incredible story, but incredibly, no one was. So my publisher was just as amazed as I was, so they sent me on my way to go around the world and interview basically everyone who was involved in this story and piece it all together.
First of all, I appreciate the soccer reference. Of course, it's football to you, right? But you said soccer for us. I appreciate that. Tell us about this kid, this high rolling Whiz kid, the center of your story, Daniel TZVETKOFF. I mean, you said he was living an opulent lifestyle, mid-20s. First of all, I heard a story that his house was something like $29 million. Is that true?
Yeah, it was $27 million.
Only 27, okay.
It's one of the most expensive homes in Australia, and it wasn't even finished yet. In fact, it was estimated that the rebuilding costs would be $300,000 every 10 to 14 days to get it finished.
Now, was he living in Australia for a reason?
He was born and bred in Australia from Brisbane. Then he moved to Las Vegas later on.
All right, now this kid certainly had it all together. He was on the ball, a smart kid, a whiz kid. I understand in the end, to save his own butt, he sort of played both sides. Can you give us a general overview of what happened and why this kid is at the center of the downfall of online poker?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Daniel started off in Brisbane as a high school dropout, pretty much. He had no qualifications. He left school at 16 and he was working in Pizza Hut. He was obsessed with computers and was doing a few different things for his company BT projects, such as designing websites and website optimization and stuff like that. And he started working for a group of guys in Brisbane who were known as the Porn Mafia, who owned a lot of the world's porn websites, and he was helping drive traffic to their sites. And one of the problems for the porn mafia was processing money, basically getting money from their customers' credit cards and putting it in their bank accounts, because a lot of banks and credit card companies didn't want to touch the porn industry. So Daniel lost some money through this, and he started to look into it in a bit more detail. And he came up with this ingenious system, this software system, which would help him process money more efficiently. And so he started off doing that in the porn industry and other industries like pharmaceuticals and travel. And then eventually, when the UIGA came in, he was approached by a guy called Ryan Lang, who used to work for NetTeller, who were the main guys who processed for online poker in the States. And Ryan said that he could help set him up with all the top poker companies if he could process for them. And Daniel soon did the math and realised that if he could process for all the online poker companies in America, he was going to make some serious money. In effect, most of the online poker company in America was going through his bank account in the end.
Right through his own bank account. I mean, that's how he organized it. Not only did he set up the system, but a lot of it was coming off the top directly to him, correct?
Well, what happened was Interbill, the company he set up along with his partner, an IT lawyer called Sam Shaka, they would charge 7% on every transaction they did. They'd also held 10% of the money that came through on account for 6 months in case a bank levied a fine and one of the poker companies didn't want to pay it, so they had that money on account anyway. And then they were also told that they had to keep track of the float, basically all the money going in and out of players' bank accounts. So instead of passing the money immediately on to the poker companies, they had to pay the winnings and handle the losses. So they had this enormous sum of money within their bank accounts, which they didn't have to pay back for a long period of time. You can imagine it was making a huge amount of interest. And the only commitment they had was that they had to pay this money back by a certain date. It was theirs to do with as they wished before that date came, and the poker companies were aware of this. So basically that's when they started looking into how they could invest this money, and obviously a lot of it went into high interest bank accounts, and the main bulk of it actually went into payday loans in Las Vegas.
I mean, this guy was so valuable to the online internet poker companies because he basically disguised the gambling revenues as legal payments, something they hadn't figured out at that point.
Yeah, I mean, without Bill and Daniel TZVETKOFF, I mean, the poker industry might have collapsed a lot sooner than it actually did. He helped prop it up for quite a long period of time. And in the end, they had quite a few banks who knew it was online poker money, and that wasn't a problem, because there was still obviously a debate whether online poker was legal or not. And virtually every lawyer they spoke to and the bank spoke to said that online poker was legal, so they didn't think they were breaking any laws. But because a lot of banks and other third-party processors they used had a cap on how much money they could put through, they had to keep looking for more banks and more processors to help them process. And that's when they had to come up with a way to hide the money so people weren't aware it was connected with online poker. And that's why they disguised the payment, in this case, as payday loans.
You know, money and greed does crazy things to people. And when you talk money, the online poker industry is $1 billion industry, $32 billion annually, I believe, in America alone, the gaming industry. James, as you delved into this story and this subject, were you surprised at the amount of money involved?
It was absolutely nuts. You just can't imagine how much money was involved and how much business the poker companies were doing even after the UIGA. I mean, I know Party Poker left the United States, so it was basically an open market for the likes of Phil Tilt and PokerStars. And despite the fact that it was getting difficult to process their players' money, they still were just doing incredible figures. And most of that money was coming to Bill and Daniel TZVETKOFF. And you can imagine this young, brilliant guy who was being heralded as a genius in the media, in his 20s. I think at one point at the height he was making, and this is in profit, $3 million profit a week.
Wow.
Living in Las Vegas. And it looked like the party was going to continue forever. And so he spent money that way. He was a huge fan of the TV show Entourage. And I think he based his lifestyle on Vinny Chase. And I think he put Vinny Chase to shame in the end with what he did.
Well, you know what? I mean, listen, he's in his 20s. All of a sudden, he's got a winning system. All this money's coming to him. Really couldn't live it up, the Playboy lifestyle. Can you give us a sense of this Vinny Chase lifestyle that he was living? I mean, we talked about the house already, but there he is in Vegas, a kid. Everything is available to him.
It was just absolutely nuts. I mean, I think he bought over 20 luxury cars, a $600,000 Lamborghini with the number plate Baller, a 100-foot, $7.5 million yacht called Maximus with a hot tub on the back, bought a V8 racing team, which is basically a NASCAR team in Australia. He basically partied it up as hard as anyone as you can imagine. He bought a nightclub in Brisbane called Zuri. He was going to invest $15 million into the biggest nightclub in the world, which was meant to be built on the Strip in Las Vegas. He partied with Mike Tyson. Within an hour's notice, bought the Playboy Suite at the Palms Hotel and spent $100,000 on a party there, which had an infinity pool on the balcony. He just lived the dream and then some.
Unbelievable. Did you get a chance to talk to him in this process? And if so, what kind of kid is he?
I got a chance to talk to most of the people who were involved. Unfortunately, because of confidentiality reasons, I can't ever disclose specifically who I spoke to. But I got a pretty good idea of the type of guy Daniel is. I spoke to a lot of people who are very, very close to him. I also saw a lot of emails, thousands of emails that were written during this period, contracts, photographs. A lot of photographs will be in the book. So I think I got a pretty good grip on how it all went down and the type of person he is. And I've had some major sources who have worked with Daniel who either like him or despise him. They've all read the book and they've all come back to me and said that it's very accurate.
Okay, well, if you can, James, can you give us some kind of sense, in your opinion, what kind of guy he is? I mean, away from his computer skills and away from all the money, in general, what type of kid is this guy?
He was a very generous, normal kind of kid who just got caught up in the lifestyle of Las Vegas and making a lot of money. I mean, he treated all his friends to private jet rides here, there and everywhere. He bought one friend, I think it was a $15,000 watch.
Oh my God.
He was a very kind guy to all the people who worked for him, but the problem was that he just spent too much money. He thought the good times were going to last forever, and unfortunately, for a variety of reasons that you'll see in the book, they weren't. And he basically left the company in a tough position in the end.
Yeah. Can we talk about the end? I know it's all in the book, and we're going to talk about where we can get the book in a second. But basically, when there's so much money involved, there's some thieves involved, some cheats, people that are just in it for the money. It's got to come down, especially when you're spending that kind of money because it's available. Basically, what happened is he turned against those companies because they were going to turn on him. Am I right?
In a way, there was a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more figures who were involved, or a load more high-profile informants who were arrested and confessed to the FBI and the Department of Justice before Daniel was arrested, and even before Black Friday. So a lot of the newspapers focused on Daniel because he's such a high-profile figure, but he certainly wasn't the only one who turned informant. A lot of other figures did. And, I think it's going to surprise a lot of people, the book, of what exactly went down. It's far more complicated than has been reported.
All right, listen, I play poker, and a lot of my listeners play poker. We love the game. We're immersed in it. It's our hobby. It's what we do. And we really take pride that there is honor among thieves. You see a lot of things at the table. Yes, we're trying to take each other's money, but at the same time, we're trying to do it in fair play. So when you delved into this subject, James, I'm not sure of your poker background. What's your opinion on poker, when you come across characters like Russ Hamilton, a guy who had it all and just wanted more? Because guys like me say, hey, this is a great game played by great people. What's your opinion of the game?
Well, in fact, in the book, it's not just the story of Daniel. There's also individual chapters on major moments in online poker history. And there's a chapter on Moneymaker and the poker boom and the various reasons for the boom. Then there's chapters on the Absolute Poker and Ultimate Bet cheating scandals. I'm grateful to speak to Hayley Hintzer about those scandals because she's done some incredible work investigating them. And when you're just blatantly cheating and ripping off players, there's no honour in that whatsoever. And I think my book, thanks to Hayley, reveals the people who were cheaters and reveals evidence why they were cheaters. I mean, those guys were just outright cheating people. There's no excuse for it. They're outright cheating people. With Daniel's case and a lot of the characters in this story, this wasn't a case that someone was doing something intentionally criminal. They basically lived beyond their means and thought that they had good reason to live beyond their means, and various things happened which caused everything to come crumbling down. They weren't criminals, they weren't trying to rip people off intentionally, they just made some silly mistakes which in hindsight they no doubt regret now.
Do you play poker, James? What do you think of the game in general? Do you like it?
I love poker. I don't play anywhere near as much as I'd like to, purely because of time, and a lot of the good friends I like to play with are scattered here, there and everywhere, so we don't get together as much as we can. In fact, I spent most of my university life playing poker instead of going to lectures. I'm just, fascinated, not just with the game, I love the game, but the characters involved. And I went to Vegas last year to the World Series of Poker, and it was an unbelievable experience, and I'm thankful that I'm going back again for the main event in a few weeks to do some publicity for the book. It's a fantastic game, and it's such a shame that some individuals and even the US government to an extent has really blighted the game over the last few years. And I just hope that now, with all the cheating scandals behind us, all the processing scandals and all the rest of it, that hopefully that we can put all this behind us now, and the US government can come up with a way to get the game rolling federally on a federal level, and hopefully we can start with a clean slate and a clean game, and hopefully this is just the start now.
Well said. One thing that really bothers me and still upsets a lot of people, you see it on Facebook and Twitter, is the fact that this is a recreational game played by people that want to use their money in a certain way, and this is how they want to spend it, and it turned into a job for many, many people, and with one stroke of a government pen on April 15th, it became illegal to play, and a lot of it the result of what happened over there at UB and with Mr. TZVETKOFF. I'm curious, James, off the top, you mentioned that you went to your publisher and asked him about this story, and all of a sudden you're whisked around the world. Tell us about your background. You're obviously a well-known writer. If you're able to go to a publisher, present a story, and then you're traveling the world, you've written for them before. Tell us about your background.
I was actually a litigation lawyer in the UK, which came in very handy for researching this book because there was thousands of court documents to go through. It might have been very difficult. So I was working as a lawyer, and I basically got sick to death of the daily 9-to-5 grind. And back in 2009, I decided to pack it in, and I coached soccer in California for a few months and travelled across the coast and thought what I wanted to do. And I'd always wanted to be a writer, and I thought, well, I'd give it a go. And thankfully, I wrote one soccer book about a local football hero in Cardiff, where I'm from, a guy called Fred Keener. And it's all kind of just steamrolled from there. I've gone up and up and up with the football books I've been doing, and thankfully Duncan Edwards, my last football book, was the #1 football book on Amazon when it was released last year. So I was really enjoying the football books. I'm a massive football fan, but when a story like this comes along, I just couldn't say no. I just couldn't turn away from it. And now I've written Alligator Bloods. I've seen a few more stories over the last few months which are in a similar vein, one in particular which has blown my mind almost on a similar scale. So hopefully I'll get to write that soon and carry on writing non-fiction thrillers with a few football books in between.
Well, listen, it really is the story of a lifetime. Released by Simon & Schuster. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. I love the title. It's called Alligator Blood, the true story of the high-rolling Whiz kid blamed for the collapse of online poker. What an intriguing story. Can't wait to read it. We've been speaking with its author, James Leighton, all the way from Cardiff. James, thanks for your time today, man, and thanks for calling it soccer.
Thanks for having me, Derek. I appreciate it. Thank you.